see. Okay, let's see.
There
It
we go.
is. Yeah,
You working?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay. It's 7:06 p.m. October 2nd, 2023. My name is Alan Gonzalez. I'm the staff liaison with the Bicycle Advisory Committee. I'm a transportation planner with Arlington County Department of Environmental Services. And I'm going to hand it off to our committee chair, which is Cynthia Palmer.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the Bicycle Advisory Committee. I'm Cynthia Palmer, and we're going to start off by introducing ourselves. Our introductory question asks whether you have attended any Bike Arlington or Walk Arlington events this year or ever. And what did you think? And do you have favorites? Or if you've never attended, what should Bike Arlington or Walk Arlington be doing that would actually bring you in to be part of the festivities? So I'll start. So you have a moment to think what your answer will be. And the activities, the Bike Arlington activities that come to mind for me are Bike to Work Day. For years, I didn't attend. I didn't even know what it was because I worked the graveyard shift, and I was just so thrilled when I learned that there was a whole day celebrating people on bikes. Second was winter bike games. That was something that Bike Arlington sponsored maybe, I don't know, 3 years ago. And they had little bike contests, and my favorite was a slow bike race where you had to bicycle as slowly as possible, and it was actually really hard and really great. And the third was sewing winter headbands, like this. So that was something that was one of my favorite activities as well, and very useful. All right, so let's go down the list, and Brian Shelton is first.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm also a planner for the Department of Environmental Services. I volunteer for the summer bike to work days, and then I participate in the winter bike to work days. I think this last winter was actually warmer than this, or it was a spring bike to work day. But I like the volunteering.
Wonderful, thank you. Dana Bress.
Yeah, I've done a bunch of the light giveaways, volunteered at the county park or the county fair, and likely some other stuff.
Wonderful, thank you. David Ansell.
Hi, I'm David Ansell. I don't think I've ever formally participated in a Bike Arlington event, although I have recently joined their email list and would like to take one of their bike maintenance classes.
Great. All right, Elwin.
Hey everyone, this is Ellen. I am pretty bummed that I missed the Arlington Art Cycle event that happened in July. I was really wanting to go, but I had something come up at the last minute. It was an event. I'm not sure if folks on the call made it, but it was a partnership between Bike Arlington with the Arlington Art Truck and the public library. And I'm a big fan, not just biking, but of art and public art. So I'm really bummed that I missed that. But if there's ever an event where they're partnering with artists for encouraging more folks to ride, then I definitely want to be there.
Oh, that art ride sounds great. Eric Goodman.
Hi, I'm Eric Goodman. I live in the Bluemont neighborhood, and I'm the liaison to the pedestrian committee, and now currently the chair of the pedestrian committee. our chair has stepped down, so I was vice chair. As far as events, I guess I have attended summer and winter Bike to Work Day, but I haven't attended a lot of the other ones. And I guess I hate to be a little bit negative on this, but I the events used to be more open. Now you have to kind of sign up for them, and there's a limited number, and so a lot of times when I've tried to sign up, I've gotten on waiting lists and haven't been able to get on. So kind of wish they were a little more open, maybe a little less giveaways and more just getting people to enjoy the event, especially like some of the tours where they have people who provide history and other information. But still, I think they do a great job. So that was my little criticism. Thanks.
Thank you. And now Mike Hanna.
Yeah, I was thinking none until I heard everybody else talk. Oh yeah, I did that. Oh, I did that too. So yeah, so just about every year for the Bike to Work Day, helped out at the fair, helped out at some other things that I don't know if it was Bike Arlington or not, or whether we were working on the transportation plan. But anyway, I've helped out at booths here and there at various events.
Excellent. Thank you. Kyle Kling.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm Kyle Kling. I'm a project management coordinator with DES Transportation, colleagues of Brian and Ellen. I have participated, as many have said on this call, at Bike to Work days in previous years. Outside of that, I have not participated in any events with Bike Arlington, but I've noticed previously they've done a lot of things or some events around holidays such as Christmas and Halloween. And I think those would be interesting events to take place in.
Wonderful. Matt Jones.
Everyone, this is Matt Jones from the National Landing Bid. We did an event with Bike Arlington for Bike Month last year. Looking forward to working with them to do bike light giveaway in November. So that's really exciting for that. I'm with the I said where I'm from, right? Okay.
Thank you. Pamela, who just ran 28 miles today, I believe.
Yeah, it's closer to 27.
Well,
It was hot. I stopped, but I did okay. Hi, I'm Pam Benheim. I'm the recording secretary for the Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and I love the BAC meetings too, so I like to attend them when I can. I've participated in, well, for Bike Arlington, I go to Bike to Work, even though I don't bike. I like getting the t-shirts and the free food and mingling with people and seeing what else they have. For Walk Arlington, I've done a ton of the walks. I've led some of the walks. And I've done stuff with PAL. I've done the lights giveaway, helped out with county fair, etc. I'll tell you a little story about a walk that we did this summer. And yes, the Walk Arlington walks fill up, but they've got a waiting list. And just show up. Chances are you will get in. We've learned painfully that there has to be some limit. You can't have a huge number of people on a walk. You can't hear. You lose people. Anyway, this was a walk on Columbia Pike that focused on the African American history there and the housing and things. And some of us continued to the bitter end and we're walking back up Columbia Pike when it was a huge downpour. I mean, it was just torrential. And we were waiting under the eaves, and there's this wonderful little computer shop right there. And the owner invited us in, and he let us stay there until the rain stopped. And recently, when my husband's computer died, we took it there as as a little thank you. And he gives very good service, and it's right there on Columbia Pike, almost opposite from of the Giant, just a little bit further east. So we recommend him.
thank you. Good to know. And now Randy.
Well, the shirt that I'm wearing says that it's from the Arlington Fun Ride, October 4, 2014. So I really like Bike Arlington events, and I've done a lot of Bike to Work Day events over the years. I think Bike Arlington is a great organization, and I'm so glad we have them.
Me too. Raymond.
Hello, everyone. Raymond Duran with Bike Arlington, the Capital Bike Share Program Manager. Love to hear all the good and bad. We try to do our best. So I'm glad to hear that people enjoy a lot of our events. Some of my favorites, Bike to Work Day. It's always a blast. Early day, but it's always good to see all the smiles and, people really just biking to work for the first time. I love those stories, hearing them. Oh, I just tried it out and they just love, it's just a good time. As long as it doesn't rain. We've had a few rain years, but we'll keep knocking on wood, crossing our fingers. But and then so the art cycle ride was a very fun event. I got to plan that, and I'm sorry we missed you, Elwin, but it's something we definitely we have the route we could, definitely repeat in the future. If the stars aligned, it's something we could definitely replicate. And that was a lot of fun because, as you mentioned, we got to see like the public art out there, and I didn't know how much there was in Ballston. There's like so much public art, like it's everywhere, and until you start so you see a few pieces, you can start identifying it. Oh, check that out. And they all have placards, and we had people, staff members from Public Art there, and guiding the tour. It was a really good time. But thank you for all the comments, and yeah, we'll take any advice. We're always trying to do bigger and better events. Thanks.
Thank you, Raymond. I hope you do the art ride again.
Soon. So yeah. It's two of us now. So it used to be a team of 5. There's only 2 of us. So that's another big reason why we have to limit things and keep them to a smaller size. But we're always trying. We're trying to build up our pals group. So if you know people who want to volunteer, and when we get a really big, good core base of volunteers, that those events can grow. So there's always possibilities.
All right, we should talk sometime about what you just said about the team of 2 that used to be a team of 5. Maybe we can weigh in somehow. Okay, Aaron.
Hey guys, I'm Aaron Schutz. I'm in the Lion Park neighborhood and work for Arlington Schools. I just got wrangled into the Neighborhood Complete Street Commission, so excited to be a part of that. So I think I've missed out on a lot of Bike Arlington things. I've done the Bike to Work Day for about a decade or so and enjoy that, but the art thing sounds fun. So I do hope, Raymond, that it comes around soon. I'll definitely be a part of that. That's it. Otherwise, I just bike around like a chump.
Wonderful. All right, Kevin Treacle.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry, it's Kevin Treacle. I'm with APS. I'm the Transportation Demand Management Specialist. As a retired detective from ACPD, I've definitely assisted on many walk, bike to school activities and to work over the years. I'm still currently working with Capital Bike Share, Raymond, Elwin, and everyone else to keep up with my passion, safety, and kids. So, and adults, obviously can't leave adults out there either, but definitely the safety aspect of it, and continue to do whatever I can. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Who else? Is there anybody that I have forgotten or missed over? I think
Jillian just hopped on.
Jillian. Yes, Jillian.
Hey, I am Jillian Burgess. Sorry. And I do lots of different bike stuff forget what the question was.
The question is what are your favorite Bike Arlington or Walk Arlington events?
Well, I'm going to shamelessly plug, since I know Bike Arlington supports us, the Escuela Key BC booth, which I lead, which doing Wednesday, and on our national.
I think we lost you, Jillian. Are you there?
You're frozen.
All right, why don't we get back to Jillian when she gets back to us? Oh, there she is. You want to try again?
Sorry about that. Yeah, so I think for me, it's the Escuela Key BC booth, which is partially supported by Bike Arlington, which is now has 3 routes riding to Escuela Key every Friday morning, except for this week when we ride on Wednesday because of Bike to School Day.
Wonderful. All right. I think that is everyone. So why don't we move along? And first up, we have Kyle Kling, project manager, talking about Crystal City to National Airport, CC to DCA.
Yep. Thank you, Cynthia, and good evening, everyone. So, yeah, Ellen had asked last week if I would come and just give a brief update on where we currently stand with CC to DCA. For those following the project, you may be aware that we're in the midst of a public engagement period currently on the environmental document. So that actually wraps up tomorrow. So you still have about 4 or 5 hours to get any comments in on that. But I'll just run through some slides here real quickly. I know I tried to take up everyone's whole night, but we'll get through some of these slides. And for those following the project, a lot of this stuff may be redundant, but I'll give you a high-level overview of things. So just real quickly, what we'll cover within the next 15 minutes or so, I'll walk through a project timeline, where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going. We'll take a look back at where we've been to date in a little more detail. I'll briefly give an update on the public engagement that we're currently in. And then we'll talk briefly about some agency coordination, as well as an update on where we currently are at with our design efforts. So jumping right into things, as I just mentioned, we're in the midst of our last public engagement cycle for the NEPA process. Obviously, we'll have several more to come once we dive into the design phase. So this is our 4th engagement cycle on the project, dating back to July of 2021. This engagement focuses solely on a public review of the NEPA document, or the environmental document, which is being published for this study. We have hopes of completing that document by the end of this calendar year. So we're targeting mid-December for completion of the NEPA process currently. So just to give everyone a high-level overview of kind of how we landed where we're at with the preferred alternative, which we'll touch base with here in a minute, is when the study kicked off 2 years ago, one of the first things we did was we developed a general study area, which can be shown there on the left-hand side. And what that study area encompassed was where a future connection could land, right? Anywhere within that study area is what we felt was prudent for a connection, right? And so within that study area, we laid out 14 potential corridors, or simply point-to-point lines on the map of where the connection could go. It's ranging from, up top there by Roach's Run all the way down to, the current airport access road. What we did with those 14 corridors was we used a set of criteria which was derived from the study's purpose and need, and we screened those down further. So any of the corridors that met all 3 purpose and need elements were retained for further consideration. And essentially, those corridors were all centrally located within the Crystal City area. So we didn't have any retained that were up to the north end of Crystal City. We didn't have any retained that were in the southern end of Crystal City. They all predominantly focused in like the 21 to 2200 block of Crystal City. From there, within those 5 corridors, we developed 4 separate options for each, which we called concepts. Those concepts were simply types of connections. So one may be a standalone bridge, another may have been a standalone tunnel option, and the other 2 options for each of those 5 were some type of hybrid. So it may be a bridge in a portion, or and then switching to a tunnel and back to a bridge. So those were developed for all 5 of the corridors. Once again, those concepts were screened based off of elements derived from the study's purpose and need. And where that left us was essentially with 5 concepts that could be carried forward for further evaluation. From there, what we did is we took those 5 concepts, which is labeled here as a range of alternatives, and we really dug down on those 5 and took a closer look at, are these actually feasible to construct within the parameters of the study area? And in that feasibility analysis, what we found is that given current constraints in those various locations, was that it was not feasible for the project to move forward with any of the options that were proposing tunnels or portions of tunnels throughout the connection. And so that essentially eliminated the 3 concepts in the middle, 8B, 8D, and 9A. Left us with 7D and 9D, both of which were bridge options throughout the entire run of the connection. There, those 2 were carried forward in the environmental assessment, which is currently out for public review. Details related to those 2 alternatives are available within the environmental assessment. Several hundred pages of information if anyone has the itch to read through them. But ultimately, at the end of the day, where we landed was that the alternative 7D was carried forward as the preferred alternative, which we'll show here on the next slide. So 7D, or what we're now referring to as the preferred alternative, starts at 2011 Crystal Drive, which is the future home of the VRE South entrance for their station, Crystal City Station improvements. From there, it traverses the rail corridor at a perpendicular before entering the George Washington Memorial Parkway. Through the parkway, it has a little bit of a skew to it, or a bend to it, and traverses the parkway, works its way down. And once you get out of the parkway and onto Federal MPS, or sorry, not MPS, MWAL property, or FAA property, actually, at the airport, we cut it off for the purposes of the alternative because of ongoing discussions with MWAL and some of their development plans. We aren't quite certain yet where this will land in the long run. We had originally proposed tying into the northern tip of the Terminal 2 parking garage here. MWAL has concerns with parking loss because of that. And so what we're hoping to do is have it hug the northern tip of the parking garage and then tie in a little bit further to the east here and a little bit closer to the terminal, which is actually a benefit, close to where the existing metro lobby is. The last thing I'll point out on this slide is that this graphic here depicts 2 connections to the Mount Vernon Trail. These were options that were presented to the National Park Service for consideration. There will be one connection. It's going to be the westernmost connection here in the dashed line version. And I have some renderings of this to show in some coming slides. So as I mentioned, have some conceptual designs on the next slides that I'll walk through real quick. Just to note, what these conceptual designs are they're presented to give individuals a better understanding of what the bridge may look like from an alignment perspective, from a structure type perspective, and more or less the scaling and massing of the bridge. What they're not intended to do is depict any type of architectural treatments or features, materials, colors that will be associated with the bridge. They're simply for illustrative purposes at this point in time. So these are conceptual designs shown here for the bridge. The top one on the left shows the connection with the future stair tower, which is being constructed by VRE as part of their station improvements. CC to DCA will begin at that stair tower. Everything back towards Crystal Drive will be handled as part of VRE's project, their Crystal City Station project. So we will start there. And as you can see from these renderings, coming across the parkway with a little bit of a bend, as we had talked about previously. And then the rendering on the right-hand side of the screen here is just a depiction of what the bridge may look like for those driving along the parkway. On this slide here, we see a little more detail about what that connection to the Mount Vernon Trail may look like. The intersection link with the trail is going to be designed in a fashion that minimizes conflicts for users. We had some initial discussions with MPS about potentially putting a roundabout at this location to help facilitate some more seamless movements and reduce some conflicts. However, the Park Service has some concerns about the physical impacts of how large of a space something like a roundabout may take up. So we are depicting for now just a traditional T intersection here as you come off the bridge and onto the trail. And these are just renderings of what that may look like once this is constructed. And so moving on, I'm going to touch real quickly on our ongoing public engagement period. So as I mentioned, the environmental assessment was made available to the public on August 18th. It can be found on the study's webpage. This document and engagement period was advertised through various channels in various capacities, ranging from print ads in multiple languages to email blasts coming from the county, as well as social media posts and specific targeted outreach via email to project stakeholders and some of the public housing, but affordable housing developments and apartment complexes in the Crystal City area. Throughout the engagement period, there were 4 main ways to comment. We had an online comment form. You could send comments directly to the project email, which is info@cctodca.us. We listed a mailing address, which handwritten comments could be provided. And then lastly, we held a public hearing or an open house back on September 19th. As well, we had a court reporter at that open house where individuals could leave a statement with the court reporter that would be documented as part of our public engagement summary as well. And as I mentioned, this engagement period ends tomorrow, October 3rd. Real quick highlights about the open house. So as I mentioned, it was held on September 19th from 5 to 7 at Aurora Hills Recreation Center. It was an open house style format where we had display boards set up around the room, and then members of the project team were there to answer any questions and have informal conversations related to the project. And then, as I mentioned, we had those various ways to comment officially on the record at the meeting, including a laptop setup and a court reporter there to take comments. We had a pretty light turnout, which was not surprising given the amount of outreach we've done to date on this project and the general high level of support that we have for it. We weren't anticipating too large of numbers here, but we had 12 people sign in with no comments being made on the record during the meeting. To date, as of these numbers are as of last Thursday, we have received 56 comments related to the environmental assessment. Some just high level themes that we've heard about so far is obviously individuals want to see a preference for a connection to the Mount Vernon Trail. We're getting general comments or questions about whether or not there'll be any type of covering or weatherproofing associated with the bridge. But really, a lot of the comments we've received to date deal with design aspects which are not resolved or shaken out yet. It's something we've dealt with since the very beginning of the project 2 years ago, and fortunately, we don't have a lot of answers for those at this point in time. But a complete list of the major themes can be seen here on the screen. And then just a little more detail on a couple of the key questions that we've asked during the engagement cycle. So on the left, you'll see we asked, do individuals have any comments on the anticipated impacts of the preferred alternative? About 50% say yes. And then to take a look at that a little bit in a little bit more detail, the majority of the people, over 50%, have indicated they have some type of other comment or concern, which I mentioned has generally been related to design specifics associated with the project. So concurrently with wrapping up the NEPA process, we have also started 30% design. So we issued a contract amendment to the consultant who's been working on the project, VHB, back in late May. That contract amendment authorized them to commence 30% design for the project. To date, since May, a lot of our efforts on the design front have really focused on looking at the connections on each end. So on the VRE side, how are we going to tie in with that future stair tower? And then with MWA, as we're getting onto airport property, where is this thing going to land and how is it going to interface with the various improvements being proposed by MWA at this point in time? So not a ton of actual design work has been ongoing. It's really been more focused on coordination. We have started or getting ready to start field work with the project in terms of doing some survey and underground utility identification. We are about to receive approval of a permit from MWA to do that work, and we're hoping to get that started within the next couple of weeks. And then just long term, what do things look like from a design perspective at the 30% phase? So as I mentioned, our field work will occur over the course of this next back half of 2023 and into 2024. We'll have a general survey and utility plan in place by spring of next year. We'll also start in the spring, we'll also start looking at some geotechnical work and the conditions out there, particularly on the airport property and within the GWMP, and taking a look at if there's any restrictions in terms of some of the soils or conditions out there. And then over the course of this year and into next year, we'll really start putting together some type of 15% and 30% design submittal for the project. Let me back up one slide. So long term, I don't have a slide on this, but long term, we anticipate 30% design to take about 2 years. So from May of this year to May of 2025, at which point in time we will bring another consultant on board to finish the project, both from a design and likely a construction perspective. Finishing design from 30 to 100% will likely take another 2 to 2.5 years. So we would be looking at starting construction probably sometime in early 2028. In the short term, what do our next couple months look like? As I mentioned, the public engagement period ends tomorrow. Once that's completed, we'll take a look at those comments and integrate those into the environmental assessment as necessary. We'll finalize some agreements that we have been working with in terms of mitigating any impacts to the George Washington Memorial Parkway with MPS over the course of November. And then this will go to the county board for approval in December. And then once the county board signs off on some of those mitigations with the Park Service, we will officially be able to have our federal partners issue what they call a FONSI, which stands for a finding of no significant impact And that will conclude the NEPA process, or the environmental process for the study, and allow us to proceed full steam with our design efforts. So that is all I have for this evening. I'd welcome any questions, comments at this point in time.
It looks like Eric has a question.
Yeah, will bike parking be included in this in any way? I think certainly as a user of the existing bike parking, and even getting to the bike parking, it's not a very easy process. And even once you get to the bike parking, getting from there into the airport is even more difficult. I'm just wondering if that will be sort of, if that will be worked out at all with the airports authority as part of this effort.
Yeah, so from our perspective, that's something that we're going to push for pretty hard with MWAL. Not knowing exactly where this is going to land is going to create a little bit of a wrinkle in that until we have a better understanding. I think if we get this thing to land near the metro lobby, as we intend to do, we think we can find some space to have either maybe some additional bike parking near that terminus of the connection, or potentially even some bike lockers or something like that that provide a little more of a secure storage for individuals who may want to actually bike to the airport to catch some flights. So yeah, it's definitely on our radar, something that we think will be a great asset to this, and we're going to push it from the county's end.
Thank you.
Jillian.
Thank you. Speaking of the county's end, I am very excited about this bridge and about the opportunity to bike or walk to the airport. I'm a little concerned that there isn't a plan that will actually make it bikeable from Crystal City, because it just sort of ends at the VRE stair platform. And I've heard a little bit about an elevator. I'm also concerned that maybe the design vehicle that people are thinking about is more a single dude on a road bike, and less people like me who are often on bigger bikes, on electric bikes. We can't carry them. We can't use runnels. And I'm often with kids. And so I need space for all of us to be able to take our bikes together if we're going to go somewhere.
Yeah, Julian, I think it's a fair comment. Something that we can discuss with VRE as we engage in coordination with them on that south entrance, right? So, as far as we know, they are in the midst of negotiating with JBG Smith in terms of how that connection may look and what amenities it may or may not have. While we can't design it for them, we can certainly encourage them to incorporate certain things, right? And what we've heard to date is that while there will be an elevator there, we don't know the size of that. We don't know if it's going to be one elevator or two. And what they are planning thus far is to have a runnel connecting to Crystal City, to Crystal Drive, I should say. But we can certainly encourage them to try to come up with some more creative solutions there. It's a challenge, right? There's going to be a huge grade difference there, and I don't necessarily know how you accommodate that, but it's something we can inquire about.
Yeah, I think there's room behind the buildings to have a ramp, which obviously is the most resilient infrastructure that'll work. If it is an elevator, even if it's a Costco size elevator, I was at the Costco in Pentagon City last weekend, and something that big could work, but then there has to be a plan for what happens when it breaks, or what happens when the electricity's out. Like, what is the contingency plan? And a runnel doesn't cut it. So appreciate you guys working on it. I know it's not an easy question, but maybe we can explore ramp options behind the buildings.
Sure. Thanks, Julian.
If no one else has questions, I have questions. One of them is, could you explain a little bit more what this stair tower will look like? And if we don't get an elevator, is the idea that we would be carrying our bikes up a spiral staircase?
Yeah, sure. Let me see if I can find a slide here that maybe shows this in a little more detail. Or actually, let me try to pull up an email I have here from VRE specifically, which shows the stair tower a little bit in a little more detail here. So, all right, this is a little bit better than what I have, but I will go ahead and share my screen again. So this is a graphic that was provided by VRE as part of their improvements, and so the area in green outlined here is the stair tower, right? And so what it is it connects their platform shown here in purple, not only to Crystal Drive, but also to the west here, which isn't shown. There's high likelihood of Amtrak having a platform there as well. So the stair tower is elevated, as is shown in this picture right here. As I mentioned, there is a guarantee that there will be an elevator in the stair tower coming from Crystal Drive. There's a potential that there will be 2 elevators in it. Those are discussions that are ongoing between Amtrak, VRE, and JBG. I don't necessarily know what the resolution is going to be, but there would definitely be an elevator there. And then, as I mentioned, the latest we have heard, there's going to be obviously a series of stairs leading up from Crystal Drive or from this, horseshoe driveway to the stair tower. But there will also be, from what we are being told, a runnel as well to get bikes up and down the stairwell.
Thank you. And another question, did you communicate with MWA and DCA at all about their other environmental assessment and coordinating their desire for more roads and more parking and more office buildings with your desire for making it walkable and bikeable?
Yeah, it's a fair question, Cynthia. We've been in coordination with MWA for the past 2 years on this project. We have, I would say, on average, met with them on a monthly basis. Sometimes it's every 2 weeks, sometimes it's every other month, right? But we have been in coordination with them. We are aware of their plans and have discussed their plans in detail with them, which is why, for the time being, there's no alignment shown on MWA property, right? And so, from our perspective, there's 2 options to get CC to DCA into a connection point to the airport, right? It's either we tie into the parking garage, directly into the parking garage, which results in impacts to parking, which MWA has been vocal about and opposed to. The other option is we tie into the metro lobby, which is our preferred option, but that comes with some impacts to some of their roadway plans. And so our coordination efforts now are, how do we mitigate some of those impacts to the roadway plans by also getting this connection in straight and as direct as possible, right? Like, we don't want any snakes in this thing. We don't want any switchbacks, no stairs, no, ramps. Like, we want this thing to be as straight as possible. And there are some challenges between where we want this thing to go and what MWA is proposing. And I would say hopefully within the next 2 months, we will have a resolution on it, but we are in coordination with them.
Thank you so much. Really interesting. I have one more question. What time are our comments due tomorrow?
We'll say by the end of the day. If you get a comment in tomorrow night or even the day after, it's fine. Yeah, as long as it's in. I said as long as it's in sometime tomorrow. I'm not going to say midnight tonight. So yeah, we'll say 11:59 tomorrow. How about that?
That works. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. If there's no one else, no other hands, then I guess we'll move along. But thank you so much, Kyle.
Yeah, and if anyone has any further questions or anything, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm happy to chat anytime.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Kyle.
Take care. Thank you. So next up, we have Kevin from Arlington Public Schools talking about safety around the schools.
Good evening, everyone. Again, just a couple of updates here. Just recently, I've been working with Arlington Families for Safe Streets. What we're doing is actually going to some of the middle schools with the sixth graders initially and working up the ladder, obviously, to seventh and eighth graders, talking about pedestrian and bicycle safety. It's going to be a part of their safety assemblies. We will be starting off with Kenmore and Swanson, I believe, and hopefully tie in the other 4 middle schools by next month. Also, that being said, I'm working with all of the elementary schools, actually with the transportation coordinators at all of the schools, where we'll kind of modify their bicycle program that they already have now. All of the second or third graders, they have built into their PE, physical education curriculum, for bicycle safety. So I'm working with Vision Zero. We're going to work together and modify their curriculum to include a traffic garden, possibly, and we just have to work that out as far as where we're going to have it. Actually, hopefully we'll be able to collaborate with DPR, potentially with them as far as the location. We're actually looking at potentially having a mobile traffic guarding where currently we have a trailer full of bikes that get rotated among the elementary schools currently for their bicycle program. So hopefully we're working on getting some funds to get that mobile traffic guarding in place in the trailer so that every school, once it comes their time to participate in the bike program, will already have the traffic gardens in there to educate, to continue to educate the kids, and hopefully we'll be moving up the ladder, if you will, to include third, fourth, and fifth graders as well. Our conversation today, it's more about the repetition of education compared to in the past. The bicycle program may have been like every other year. So hopefully we're going to get everyone involved in this school year and hopefully get it up and running to educate them with the traffic guarding as well and continue on as they get older in elementary school. So that's all that I have. Oh, I will say that I'm working with Arlington PD as well to make sure all of the mobile signboards are out advising folks to slow down and strategically placing them in areas where there will be or there are a lot of high pedestrian traffic as well as cyclists. And obviously everyone knows that Wednesday is National Walk Bike to School Day. So we will definitely be out in enforcement with that. Actually, there is a challenge that I put out there for all the elementary schools that whoever registered the most educated or guest participants will win the library board. I think it's called the library board, where they have library house. I think that's what it's called, and they will be placed in front of their school. Whoever guesstimates how many participants that they have. So that's, I think, one of the things that are getting the kids even more excited than the actual day itself of being able to ride, walk, or bike to school. And that's it. That's all that I have to share.
Thank you so much, Kevin. And we have a question from Jillian.
Hi, Kevin. I'm
Hello.
Jillian Burgess. I lead the Escuela Key BC Boost. We
Yes.
loved to have you join. We had the chair of the National Transportation Safety Board join last week, which was super exciting. In fact, we did a whole tour with
and went down to Alexandria where they have traffic gardens in as part of their schools. And we heard about the program in DC to design and install traffic gardens in all the schools. In conjunction with Discover Traffic Gardens, which is like the national leader on traffic gardens, and they're based right next door in Fairfax.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'd love to have you engage with us and engage with Safe Streets Are for Everyone. Thank you.
Sure.
And support the bike bus movement.
Yes.
So in addition to that, I believe your title, at least at one point, was Transportation Demand Management Coordinator or Specialist.
That's what it is.
And I know I've been eagerly waiting to see the Transportation Demand Management Policy from APS, but that seems to have like disappeared from the schedule. I know it's really important because right now we don't, most APS schools, I mean, aside from the fact that it's required, that the county required APS to do this for the entire system, and APS is not in compliance with that right now. The reason it really matters is that the biggest barrier for a lot of people in getting to school safely is that there's so many cars around the schools. And most schools are doing absolutely nothing to discourage cars. They're doing very little to have intentional places where people who drive go here, people who walk go here, people who bike go here, to minimize those conflicts. And it's a problem with every school that I'm involved in. And so a lot of us were looking forward to this TDM policy and a chance to engage with you and talk to you about it. I'd love to hear what's going on with that so we can talk about making the spaces around our schools safer.
Okay, yeah, that would be a question for Renee Harbor, who's the assistant superintendent on that. So I'm quite sure you can contact her and she will have that information. I just don't have it right now. So if you contact Renee Harbor, she'll be able to provide you any information that you need.
Okay, so you're not doing transportation demand management?
I am on a different level. I don't deal with the policy information stuff. I don't deal with that.
Or what about the school plans? Because those are also they're all interlinked.
Yeah, I work with the school regarding their safety avenues, regarding the safety element of getting the kids to school, to and from, whether it's as in a vehicle, which most of them are, and or pedestrian or cyclist. So yes, I do try to work with the schools on that level. And I've already redone with 3 schools, their arrival and dismissal format. And speaking of one about the car aspect of it, using Randolph as an example, which is a neighborhood school, but unfortunately, 70% of the kids get there by being driven. So that's a problem. The school can only suggest so much that still, if the parents choose to drive the kids to the school, which again, it's a neighborhood school, they have one special needs bus. So everyone technically should be walking or biking to school if we're trying to eliminate vehicle or traffic.
So I think part of the issue there is, the more people who drive, the less safe people feel doing anything but driving. But there's examples from around the country and around the world where they do things like just make it harder to drive, like just close the street in front of the school for all but school buses, so that if you want to if you want to drive, that's fine, but you can't actually get very close to the school, so it's not actually more convenient.
I agree 100%, but that's going into a county issue as well. So the county's not all for closing streets when they don't have to. But that's a conversation.
So
DES.
So you've asked and they've said no?
No, I have not asked. No, I have not done that. We've done multiple ways of trying to make traffic flow the best that we can and the safest route. Those ways have been tried in the past. As I did with Oak Ridge, I may go back and try different ways to try to prevent or reduce vehicle traffic. When one thing doesn't work, then you try something else.
Okay, well, we'd love to see the policy because I think there's a lot of models from around the world that we could use, and especially if we had a county-wide policy, I think it would help. And then finally on data, so you mentioned most kids are driven to school. The last time data was released on how APS kids got to school, that wasn't the case. But with the elimination of ACTC, we don't have public data on how kids get to school. Do you have that, and can you release it?
I don't have that date. I just mentioned one particular school, which I know that's happened. Not all of the schools. I mentioned just Randolph Elementary, that I've been there and experienced that. That's the only results that I can say that I've experienced with just Randolph, using that school as an example.
Oh, okay. So the APS Go surveys, are those just eliminated now? You're on mute.
Sorry, that I don't know. That I don't.
Okay. Okay, well, it would be great to have that. It seems like the program, when it was shut down for a year, it seems like we lost a lot. And yeah, it would be great to have more support for it. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Oh, there's a question, Mr. Schwartz.
Schutz. Yeah.
Schwartz, sorry.
Hey, no problem. Hey, Kevin. I work for Arlington Schools also. I work at Yorktown High School and bike there from middle of Arlington. And I absolutely share Jillian's concern of the more cars, the less safe it is for people to get to school by any other means than by car. And I don't know if you hang out around a bunch of high school kids driving, but there's hundreds of them, going around the high schools every morning. So, I have to make sure I get on my bike early enough to avoid the high school kids. They're still sleeping, fortunately.
Right.
But coming and going from the school, I look out my window from my classroom and I see just a line of cars. I see the parking lots full, of kids before school starts. I see parents waiting for 20 minutes in the queue to pick up their kids after school, and I'm sure it's nowhere close to 70% of the families like at Randolph, but it's huge. It's a really large number. What's going on? What are we doing? What is APS doing to try to change that? To try to help make busing a viable option for more families, K through 12, and make the streets safer.
Right. And during different levels, being elementary, middle school, and high school, obviously, at the elementary school level, they're just educating and putting out the information regarding walking and biking and encouraging that to be done. Unfortunately, the more that they put that information out, obviously that's still going to be a parental decision, how they decide to get their child to school. As much as they put it out there, I go to PTAs preaching the same thing. But again, the information just can be forwarded to the parents, and the parents are making those decisions regarding how they're letting their child get to school.
But are we doing things to make riding the bus the more convenient choice? I mean, I know kids love to drive, but they don't necessarily love being dropped off by their parents or picked up by their parents. So what are we trying at least to make it more appealing to use mass transit?
Just putting it out there. We're providing iRide cards to kids at all levels, well, at least the middle school and high school levels, where they can ride the ART bus for free. And we're putting that out there. We have done educational pop-ups to provide them those cards. So we're pushing that information out. I think Raymond can attest to that with the capital bike shares information as well. So we're making that information. We're making that information available and sharing it with the kids, and hopefully getting them interested enough to partake in the programs.
Yeah, Capital Bike Share doesn't operate up at the far north end of the county, up where Yorktown is. And there's only one bus, so you got to plan, every hour one of the buses comes up there, the 52. So it's challenging, but even if we're just thinking about school buses, I just encourage you to, education is one thing, but Arlington changing what we do to make it better to take the bus and less good for parents to drive the kids.
Sure.
You know, it's out of control and it's dangerous. It is so much safer for me to bike to work on a non-school day, on a non-student day,
Right.
because parents and and kids are just it's reckless. It's dangerous out
Sure,
there.
sure,
So
sure.
thank you.
Understandable. Sure. Thank you. Julie, you have another question?
Yeah, to that end, were you involved in the decision to eliminate the hub stops?
And some of them,
The hub
I've
stops that
made
were
certain
eliminated.
recommendations. I've made some recommendations, but it's not my call. It's not my final decision. I've made some recommendations, yes.
Okay, because things like that, and for those who don't know, option schools have a system called hub stops where the bus stops are a little bit further, a little bit more centralized. And when that system was established, we were told that the hub stops wouldn't change from year to year, that the hub stops would be established and then they would stay where they are. So you might have to go a little bit further, but you know where it is. And then this year, it seems that staff applied a policy that applies to neighborhood bus stops for neighborhood schools, to the hub stop system and eliminated like 20 hub stops. And I know for a fact families are driving because their hub stop was eliminated. So can you talk about that? I mean, were you there advocating for the hub stops so that
When there's an assessment for me, there's an assessment and criteria that I go on with that assessment. So once I see that particular stop, I make a recommendation based on those criterias. Again, I don't make the final decisions about that. Again, I submit my recommendation, whether or not I feel that it is a safe hub stop, or is there visibility issues or comfort levels. And that's what I grade my criteria on when I make the recommendation. But again, I don't make the final recommendations to eliminate or deactivate or relocate hub stops.
are those criteria public?
Yeah, they should be. Yeah,
Where are
they
they?
should be in the APS catalog guidelines.
The E51 or whatever, the PIP? Because there's nothing in there.
It's not. Well, the hub stops recommendations are definitely in the APS guide, if you will.
Okay, I'll look and see if they're there because
And the criteria is as what's graded upon that criteria. That's why it's there.
Okay.
In the transportation section.
Okay. And do you ever ask families? Do you engage with the PTAs and ask families why they are driving?
I do. I have.
And what are people saying? What kind of feedback do you get?
Some folks have just said it's just easier for me. I'm on my way to work. I drop my kid off at the bus stop, and some folks just prefer to do that.
No, drive to school.
Yes. Well, drive to school. Bus stops, hub stops, if you will, as well, or to school.
So if it were harder for them, they maybe would not do it. If it took,
I can't say that. I can't answer that. I don't know. I don't have that answer. Just because there's a lot of traffic, that doesn't prevent people from driving. People drive every day in traffic.
No, I mean, if they, for example, were not allowed to go right in front of the school door and it actually took longer, maybe they wouldn't do it if it wasn't actually a better option.
Possibly.
Well, I hope it's something that APS will explore. Also, you mentioned a lot of communication. I have to admit, I am a very engaged parent of kids at 2 different schools, and I haven't heard any of this. So I'm not sure what methods of communication you're trying to get stuff out. But like, for example, Bike to School Day, we're organizing for Bike to School Day. We moved the BC booths for Bike to School Day. I haven't
Mhm.
heard about that competition
Well,
at all.
as I said earlier, I deal with all of the transportation coordinators at every school. I've sent out several emails for them to put it out to parents. Now, whether or not they have put it out, I don't control that. All I know, I put the information where the lead person is, and that's the transportation coordinator. And most times at elementary schools, it's typically the assistant principal to put out in Parent View or Parent Square now and other social media avenues that they use.
So I think that may be a problem, and I think it might help to survey the schools, because I know at the schools that my kids are at one, our transportation coordinator doesn't think he's a transportation coordinator. He's still listed on the site as the transportation coordinator, but he
At
says,
Escuela,
yeah,
he's
he's
not.
very busy.
It's Mrs. Perdomo. She's the coordinator.
She's the principal.
Okay, she is the coordinator as well.
Okay, well, you know, I think that the issue is that the staff isn't paid extra and they're not doing more. And it's the same at Gunston. Mr. Matos, he's a great guy. He's awesome, but he's really overworked and he's getting nothing extra to be the transportation coordinator. And so nothing is coming out to the families. I don't know, maybe other schools are giving stuff out to the families, but it might help if you could survey the families and see if anything's actually getting out, because
Sure, I will. I would do that.
Schools I'm involved with.
So maybe we can do a part B of this conversation at some point, because there's
Sure.
just so much to cover. I do want to mention one idea before we move on, which is just that it's like in terms of getting people out of their cars. Sometimes it's difficult for institutions to improve if they don't measure, if they don't have metrics, and and if they don't have sort of coalitions. I mean, we can't, like, you can't do it all. like we get that. It's like we're asking so much, and we need sort of many different groups working on this to get people out of their cars, because one guy cannot do it. And I'm just wondering, with this idea of metrics in mind, like, we don't measure at the schools, like, what proportion of the kids are walking or biking or being driven or driving themselves to school, and the same with the staff. We don't measure also the transportation choices and the greenhouse gas emissions from those choices. Arlington County, 1 year in 2014, we measured the greenhouse gases. We hired Tool Consultants, TOOLE, and they did a little project. It's on the internet, to estimate the greenhouse gas emissions from kids being driven or driving themselves and staff driving themselves to school. But other than that, that's the only piece of data we have, and we don't include transportation choices in our greenhouse gas estimates for the schools, because those are considered scope 3, and we only measure greenhouse gases from the school buses. And I think it would be good for the county to, and for many entities in the county, to get behind this. So it's not just you, Kevin, who we can't push to do it all, because they're asking a lot. But if we had metrics, and then we tried to do better and figure out ways to incentivize walking and biking and public transit, I think, that could be a contribution. So anyway, that's my thought.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, along those lines, the county actually has in the master transportation plan a goal for the percentage of kids biking to school. And that was written when APS did the Safe Routes to School surveys and the APS Go survey. So those seem to have been eliminated by APS, but sort of without any fanfare and without like an actual public discussion. But it makes it hard for the county to fulfill its own goals when we don't have that data.
All right, thank you so much, Kevin. That
Thank you.
really helpful, and it was a part A or part B out of many discussions because it's a big topic, obviously. So thank you for coming here.
Thank you. Everyone have a great evening.
Thank you.
I'll put my email in the chat, and if there's any other questions, feel free to email.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. And next up, we have BAC membership and charter. And that's Ellen, I guess, will take the lead, and I can also fill in a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Cynthia. So we talked about this initially, I believe, at our August meeting, where we started to talk about how the county is currently in the process of looking at all the charters for each of the board appointed commissions, including the BAC, and also taking a look at how we could take a look at membership numbers to make sure that they're consistent. And that they're appropriately staffed to make sure that everyone has a chance to weigh in on each commission. So we talked about this briefly in our August meeting, but basically there's a current issue where we have some members that are officially like recognized and they have like appointments that are on the website, but then there's some folks who don't come to meetings who aren't as vocal as folks who come to each meeting. Like for example, a lot of the folks on this call were in the last couple meetings. Yeah, we're just trying to gauge ways forward to see how we can establish some consensus to make sure that the folks who do show up to meetings who are supportive of the BAC are actually recognized as members. And yeah, I'll let Cynthia speak up as well to make sure I'm not missing anything.
Thank you. So we are going to update the lists, and we'll try and do it accurately. And I just want to say, it's not like engagement can be going to meetings, but there's so much also that can happen behind the scenes. And like as a single mom who does elder care, I totally get it if like people can't make it to a meeting or whatever because life is crazy. So we want to recognize, we want to fix the membership roles and recognize people who are actually engaged at, whatever time and in whatever form. So Ellen and I will start working on that. But if there's somebody who wants to, make sure that you're on the committee or whatever, send us an email and we'll take care of that. And then we had a meeting with Wei Wang, who leads transportation, and also Sarah Crawford, who leads Vision Zero. And they told us that they've been working on the BAC and PAC charters. And I think they said like in the next couple of weeks, we should see draft charters for our committees and we can weigh in again. That was something that we had spent a little time on maybe a year ago. I don't know, a while back. So, and it was a really good meeting. On late Friday afternoon, Ellen and I met with them, and I talked about the BAC's hope to be engaged as early as possible in the decision-making processes. And I was asking them, like, how can we assist the county? And also, how can we applaud fixes when there are things that we see that we've seen that county staff have done. Sometimes like you just want to do a shout out or like recognize someone behind it worked really hard to fix a light or a pothole or whatever it is. So they were saying, yeah, like maybe we could even include that in report a problem, like actually something positive, report, something good. And that staff would really appreciate that sort of a thing. We talked a lot about Shirlington Road, and I hope that we have another discussion with staff about near and intermediate term fixes, including possibly, I suggested removing the flash beacon, which I think gives a false sense of security and makes it more dangerous. We also talked about the CIP process for capital improvements, and they said it would be great if the BAC and the PAC work together to write a letter to Mr. Schwartz in November or in December with our suggested capital improvements. So that's something that I've got jotted down for one of the next 2 meetings, or maybe both. We also talked about federal environmental assessments, and they acknowledged that they were absolutely caught off guard by the DCA plans to expand the office buildings and roadways and parking areas at National Airport. Which made me think that actually our letters, those of us who wrote letters, those letters carry more weight because the county wasn't able to get their letters in. We also talked about inviting the police and the fire departments again, and I think we'll do that if there's interest and we can come up with some lists of questions. And then, yeah, just the member lists and the voting and the charters and all that. So what did I miss?
That was great. Like, wow, that was like an hour meeting that we had on Friday, and you can attend within like 5 minutes.
So if you want more details, we can be in touch. Does that catch us up on we're not as far behind? I think we're good now. All right, so why don't we move along? The next thing is Elwin is going to talk about the Mount Vernon Trail Improvement Plan Environmental Assessment.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Cynthia. And if folks haven't been aware, I'm going to drop the link to this environmental assessment in the chat. But basically, the National Park Service is about to kick off a new improvement plan for the George Washington Parkway. Basically from kind of close to Roslyn all the way down past Arlington, past DCA, through Alexandria, all the way down to the Mount Vernon property itself. And it's basically they've released an environmental assessment, basically outlining the main priorities that they seek to do, because it's not just improvements to the parkway itself, but they're also going to be doing substantial improvements to the Mount Vernon Trail. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. It's quite a hefty document, about 200 pages or so. So I'm not going to bore you guys to death in the details. All of this information is on the website that I just shared, that National Park Service is in the process of collecting comments for. But I just wanted to give you guys the big highlights. Like, for example, on page 8, it shows that the Arlington section is considered Trail Zone 3. But basically, as part of those improvements, they're looking at doing, let's see, sections of improvements north of Lady Bird Johnson Park, basically a parallel to the Teddy Roosevelt Island. And then from, I guess, from the boating area down past the airport, basically up to the 4-mile run is considered section Zone 3. They're not touching this portion that fronts along Lady Bird Johnson Park, basically. And then as part of this process. They're going to be installing improvements for sorry. They're just making improvements at gravelly points. I'm not sure if you've heard the news, but they're going to be replacing the porta potties that are there with actual flushing toilets. They're installing more improvements, such as more gathering areas for the folks to watch the airplanes land at DCA. They're making improvements to the trail, better access to the parking lot area that's there. But then some of the biggest things that I'm pretty excited as a person who uses the trail a lot is they're going to be actually making improvements to the trail itself in the form of widening the trail in some locations. Let's see, sorry, a little scattered. Okay, here we go. Here's the fun stuff. So I'm sure everyone on the call is aware that several sections of the trail are pretty constrained, especially during peak hours where a lot of folks are, walking and biking out there. So they're going to be, as part of this process, looking for ways to expand the trails to be a 12-foot width, basically. There's some areas that, are as short as 8 feet wide, but they'll be widening as much as they can, depending on the location of, stormwater facilities and vegetation and things like that. But doing their best to have the trail be consistent 10 to 12 feet overall, which could help with folks passing. And then, let's see, buried in the appendices are these roundabout alternative design that they're shown. For example, this one is going to be where the Mount Vernon Trail intersects with the 4 Mile Run Trail. Not just to the trail itself, but also access to the bridge. Then there's also a concept for another roundabout where the Mount Vernon Trail meets with the stub that goes up to the 14th Street Bridge to get to DC. But yeah, I encourage everyone to take a look at the document. Like I said, it's pretty heavy, so I'm not going to go too in depth into it. But I want to give everyone the awareness that this is out there, and comments are going on, I believe, until October 24th. Yeah, that's all I got for that. If anyone has any questions.
Any questions for Ellen?
Hey, Randy.
Elvin, do you know if they are planning to pull the trail back behind the bathrooms that they're putting in?
Yeah, I did see thanks for the question. I did see a blurb about how they're going to be adding additional sidewalk space, because that area is pretty busy, not just because of the existing porta potties, but also because there's a Capitol Bike Share station. There's people walking from the parking lots. Some people just meandering and taking photos of planes, So I did see some language in there showing alternative ways to give more people space to bike or walk around.
It's not the question of space, it's the question of traffic. People come out of the porta potties and step onto the trail.
Mm-hmm.
And if you put the trail in front of the bathrooms, same thing's going to happen. So the best way to work it for bicycle riders would be to run the trail back behind all of that stuff and make the connection not where it is now, but a little bit closer to the parkway, actually, and keep us out of the area where all the people are.
So Randy, I think that's part of the plan, the Gravelly Point bypass that we've talked about before, where the bike trail would go close to the parkway and then close to the woods and connect up with the current trail. I think that's part of the plan. It has been in the past. And also part of the plan is to build permanent bathrooms, not just the porta potties. And so any permanent bathroom would have a porch area. Porch is the wrong word, but it would have like an area that you walk into, so nobody would literally be opening a door into the trail anyway. But it's in there if you look.
It's not opening the door into the trail. It is emerging from the bathroom area porta potties are bathrooms after all. It's emerging from the bathroom area and immediately getting out onto the trail. We've been
like
after them for 20 years or more to do something about the congestion there, because when you ride through, I don't ride that trail anymore on weekends, but used to. And when you ride through on a weekend, it's just like dodging pedestrians.
No, I hear you, and I think they've heard you, is what I'm saying. They have two different ways that they're going to fix it. One is a bypass trail, and then even if you stay on the main trail, people won't walk out onto the trail. They'll walk out into a little area. I don't think the permanent bathrooms are designed, but any permanent bathroom is going to have a little area that you walk out onto. And so even if it's still turned to the trail, it won't be you walk out onto the trail. It'll be like a separate building. In other words, it's all good news.
And I expect that it might look like the new bathrooms at Iwo Jima, where they're set back from the trail a good chunk. Very attractive.
Yeah, exactly. Think about those bathrooms. That's what we're talking about.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you so much, Ellen. And now we are up to BAC business and announcements. Who I have the one item, which is the voting, finalization and voting on the backpack legislative priority list. But maybe others have other items of business first. All right, why don't we dive right into this? So we've, Pam from the PAC and I have been circulating possible lists of legislative priorities for the state. So they have been on the BAC and PAC listservs over the last week or so. And we're going to write a letter to the county liaison who is doing the legislation work. And we just want to make sure that we've got the right priorities listed. So hopefully, I didn't make any slides, but hopefully you all see it in the agenda at the bottom, our lists, and also we've been circulating them in multiple emails filling your inboxes. But I will just mention our top list at this point includes the items that have a reasonable chance of passing, and those are letting bicyclists cross on the lead pedestrian intervals. Second, and this is not in order, Vision Zero and transportation safety funding. Number 3, letting bicyclists ride side by side. Number 4 is the safety stop, and hopefully you all saw my bit of research on that, which totally changed how I think about it. And finally, just recently, Pam and the PAC had the brilliant idea of adding increased state support for the metro system. And I'm hoping that everyone is good with that list and with the addition of increased metro funding, which makes all of us safer. The fewer people in cars, the better we are on the streets. So, how do people like that priority list? Eric.
Yeah, I just want to ask the question, does the safety stop really have a reasonable chance of passing? I know I saw your argument. I'm just wondering. I think it's still pretty controversial. I'm just surprised. I would feel, it could be a priority that we have, but I'm not sure it's really going to pass. I just think that there's too much controversy that it probably won't make it past, the title in some ways. Because not everybody has the understanding that you've provided.
So it passed once. It passed one house, not the other. It's complicated, but the only reason it's not law today is because because VDOT objected and a few lawmakers said, go work with VDOT to make it law. So I think and we have worked with VDOT and VDOT now supports it. Now, that all being said, we get a whole new legislature next January. So like, who knows what is at all reasonable, but just from the perspective of VDOT's now on board, the state police are now on board, and this has been in front of the legislature basically 3 different years. I think it really is as realistic as anything is right now.
Yeah, we say reasonable chance of passing, but a number of these don't have that much chance of passing, based on what I've read and heard, including letting bicyclists cross on the LPIs legally. I do it all the time, but it may not pass. So, and then our secondary priorities, should circumstances allow, are actually some of the things I am most interested in. Removing contributory negligence in law in Virginia, requiring side underride guards on trucks statewide, enabling municipalities to have e-bike rebate programs, and broader authority for automated traffic enforcement. So we're keeping those on a secondary list, but I would like to work on them in any way we can in the interim, especially the side underride guards, which we could push for on county vehicles and county contractor vehicles as a starting point. So, any more thoughts, or does someone want to call for a vote?
So the other thing I was just going to say is the importance of things being on this list is that if something's on the list and it does come up in the legislature, then Arlington can speak for it. If it's not on the list and it comes up in the legislature, Arlington staff have a harder time speaking for it. And we've been in this situation before where we were able to have Alexandria Vision Zero staff come and talk about the safety implications and the need for various things, and we couldn't have Arlington because it wasn't on Arlington's list. So with that, I fully support the list, and I think we should go forward.
And we're not missing anything critical that you can think of.
We're not missing anything that I think will come up.
Okay.
I think the stuff on there could come up. I mean, I can't express how uncertain next January is. It's way more uncertain than any other year that I've been involved in this stuff. So who knows what's going to come up? But the stuff that's on the list is the stuff I think could come up. So it's good to have it on the list.
Okay. So should we call for a vote? And who's good at Robert's rules?
I'll just say, this is Mike. I move that we adopt the list as presented by Cynthia.
I second it.
And then I
You,
think
you can
Cynthia
call for a
just,
voice vote. You can
yeah,
call for objection. You can call for things in the chat. You're pretty flexible here on what you do to call for a vote.
So Cynthia, this is Megan. What you do is you say we have a motion on the floor and you can allow for further discussion, but I think we've discussed that unless anybody has any further discussion right now. And then you call for a vote. And in this particular case, what I've done in the past is if there's any objections, do those first. And then because I haven't heard any dissent yet, so that's probably the easiest way to do it.
Okay, so that's my job. So
Yep, that's your job.
we have
Yes,
a
ma'am.
motion on the floor. And I think we're going to have a vote. Yes. And can we do all those in favor? Maybe? Or we could try it the other way.
Why don't you do it as a dissent first? Anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so who would like to dissent? All right. And is anybody in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
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 All right. I think we're good, right? Okay. Well, Pam, thank you very much. And Pam and I can write that up. And I see Eric has a hand.
I guess I do have a question. I know Pam sent this out, but officially, I guess it hasn't circulated through the PAC. I wonder if we should wait till next week when we have our meeting on next Wednesday, or if that's too late.
It's not too late. They extended the deadline. I don't think we're going to have any problems with approval for the PAC as well, since it was discussed pretty much at the last meeting. Cynthia and I and Eric, you're welcome to join in, can draft up the letter. And Eric had one good point, that we add an asterisk to points that are also really pedestrian issues, because some of these, like side-by-side bikes, are not really pedestrian issues particularly. And we will vote on it in our meeting next week, and that's just next Wednesday. So that gives us plenty of time to make any corrections if we have to and get it out. I think that'll work.
Sounds good. I'll join you on that.
Please do. We appreciate it always.
Yeah, and if anyone else wants to work in it, yeah, totally welcome. All right, thank you, everyone. And let's see what else. It's 8:43. Well, first of all, does anyone else have BAC business or announcements?
Yeah, this is Dana. That note I had on MOTs, I'll be sending out another version probably on Wednesday. And then we can resolve it in November.
So when would you like input by?
I would say we'll resolve it at the BAC meeting in November.
Okay, so input by the end of this month or so.
Yeah, just read it and hold your fire.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for doing that.
While we're on the topic of MOTs, are we still interested in having that panel discussion?
Dana, that's a question for you.
Refresh my memory, panel discussion.
Yeah, I believe we wanted to have a MOT panel with some folks from DES to come speak. We were trying to do it in August, but we decided to push it back to give people time to prepare.
Well, yeah, I suppose you could probably use the document that I'll send out on Wednesday as a source, because it has a lot of asks.
Okay, sounds good.
So that's really helpful. So we can finalize that document more or less, or at least talk about what's in it at the November meeting. And then if we were to invite staff to meet with us about it, that would be at a future meeting. So this is like a two-step process, three-step process. Okay?
Yeah, I agree. That's good. That's a good process.
Okay. All right. And just so people know, so I keep a running list of issues that come up in meetings that we need to discuss more, as well as my pet issues like Shirlington Road that always need to be discussed more. So some of the things that in the that are on my list for the next couple of meetings include Dana's MOT discussion, a follow-up on the signals discussion now that we have at least a little bit of data from Josh from the last meeting and from his email. So it would be good to do a follow-up and compile questions and ongoing challenges and issues with signals. VDOT has an ongoing invitation. We tried to get VDOT to come and discuss Route 1 at this meeting, but maybe they'll say next meeting. We need to talk about the CIP. So between now and then, if folks could think about like major or somewhat major construction projects, maintenance, well, I don't know if it's maintenance, but at least construction, how do we recommend that Arlington spend its money, however limited that is? I'd also like to talk about bike lane maintenance issues that came up in Elwin's discussion. I think in the August meeting, particularly for protected bike lanes, how is Arlington managing to maintain them and get the sweep the glass and all that? In the next couple weeks, we might have the BAC and PAC charters, so we'll want to talk about those. Also, this ongoing issue of safety at Shirlington Road and whether to remove the flash beacon. So whenever you're riding through there or walking through there, think about that and what would make sense for that intersection. And then I would really like to urge the county to consider side underride guards on county and contractor vehicles. So maybe we can discuss that and bring in someone from the county to talk with us about that. So those are some of the items on my current list of topics. But if people have other items, you can mention them now. You can email me, whatever works. And one last thing on my list, I was thinking it would be fun to have another in-person happy hour in October. Would others be interested so I'm not drinking alone? Maybe not.
You have a problem with drinking alone?
Not really.
I'll join again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well then,
Same here.
we're good. All right, so we'll figure out a date. Some of us can exchange emails, and it would be nice to make it a BAC and PAC happy hour, and I'm happy to have it near the walkers, because those of us on bikes can always get to you, Pam, and others. So, so let's
But can we
coordinate
get
what
home?
might, huh?
But can we get home? How happy is this hour?
Yes. I'll escort you.
We might all be walkers after that.
There we go. We can walk our bikes home.
I mean, beginning of the call, I was bragging about never having needed to call for a ride. I don't know.
There you go. Right. Okay. Does anybody have anything else to say? I haven't looked at the chat this whole time, so I'm missing whatever was written. So any additions that I've missed? All right. Well, last time we ran over, so today I'm giving you back 9 minutes. Have a good evening, everyone.
Yeah, thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
Cynthia. Thanks, Ellen.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
Cynthia.
much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
one.
Hey, guys.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.